Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. I just coming out of an inside moment, to be honest. I don't know if it is my place to talk about kindness, but I think in any way that you can get a good message out to people, it should be appreciated for what it is, right? And I came across a post just a minute ago, again, just going through things, my feed, as I'm waiting to go live. Oh my goodness, this is 2 days in a row that this happens. And I got myself a little stirred up in that. Actually, I did that a couple of times today, kind of triggered myself, my own fault, because I'm not implying myself in goals. I'm trying to stay busy, but I'm not waking up in the morning with a set plan for my day today. And I haven't for the past couple of days, to be honest. I feel the heaviness of the world right now. I know that sounds a little bit funny, but I do feel that heaviness. And when I come across the negativity, it rubs against me uncomfortably. And of course, being the person that I am, I'm going straight to my mind and I'm contemplating, right? I'm mulling the subjects along. And it's not in a way to take sides in the opinion, because I can clearly see the right and the wrong in both perspectives. It's one thing I believe that I'm really good at. It comes from my hypervigilance, it comes from my own upbringing. It's that idea that I don't want to make a mistake when I'm pulling myself away from situations, from people, right? From circumstances quite often. And when you do that, lots of times, most of the time, somebody is going to take it personally, right? And it's hard to do something like that impersonally, right? Because if you're present one moment or consistently all the time, and then all of a sudden you're not there, of course somebody's brain is going to go a little wonky, right? A little screwy. And as a prime example, I'm kind of used to having Tammy come in. Hello, Tammy. Come in and hang out with me during the week in this live show. And I appreciate her company. I really do. But what if a whole week goes by and I don't see Tammy in my feed? If she doesn't come in and join in with me in my lives, there's going to be a concern. Number one, for her, is she okay? How do I get a hold of her just to check up on her? I know I can go into her comments, right, and just send a reply, and I know she'll get back to me right away. But at the same time, it's honoring somebody's decision not to be around. You know, Tammy, I'm going to say, if she's got work to do, she's a caregiver lots of time. Without notice, she has to go off and she has to caregive, right? But she always sends me these messages to say, Cindy, I can't come in tonight, or I can't come in this week. And I always tell her, don't worry about it. You have your life and you get to make the choices in your own life. But at the same time, I do appreciate that she lets me know, because then my brain's not going off in places. I'm not giving my comments a side eye to say, ooh, is Tammy here? Or why isn't Tammy here? right? But there may come a point, somewheres I'm hoping not anytime soon. I'll come into your comments in just a moment, Tammy. I just don't want to get distracted from the point that I'm trying to make. That we will come to a split in the road, right? You know, I've come to those splits with every person practically that has come into my life. Grateful it hasn't been, I never want to see you again, see you on the beach, right? If I ever see you again, it's never ever been anything like that. For the most part, if I would ever bump into these people again, there would be hugs and hellos and catch ups, right? And how people are doing in their lives. There's always a reason for it, but we shouldn't judge, right? If that reason is not expressed in any way. I try really hard, and it's not an empath thing, it's a common courtesy, it's an understanding, and it's a kindness not to overstep somebody else's boundaries, because if they wanted to explain, right, they would explain, even if it was just to give me a finger or shout at me or, right, give me the side eye, right? There would be some kind of explanation, but lots of times we're not those people, right? We would just rather just quietly slip away and go down by ourselves down that side road when it comes to that split. And again, time heals wounds. Time, talking, crying, it does heal wounds. I am certain of it because I've had these experiences myself. And yes, sometimes it takes a very long time, sometimes years, right, to get past it. But we do get past it. Those hurts are still there, but they're softer, right? They're softer because we understand, right? We're not judging. And there is a sense of kindness that we want to give to our fellow human beings that are in our vicinity. I've done it many times just to go my merry way. That fork in the road comes, I just go in a different direction. And lots of times there's no explanations, there's no goodbyes, right? If you knew it was going to be traumatizing for the other party, it would be, if you have that sense of kindness about yourself, to express that, because Cindy's sitting there wondering if Tammy's okay. How do I get a hold of her? Is she mad at me? Right? But when we butt heads, when we rub each other badly, right? It is in that respect of everybody. We have to remember that that one person that's not rubbing you properly, that you can't be around anymore for whatever reason, right? That they have people around them too, right? And this is something that I learned, probably in the past half a dozen years or so. That kindness is not necessarily for the person that it's directed at, that one person that's irritating. The kindness, quite often, are for the people that are in the vicinity, right? For the people who are put in a position that they don't want to take sides. Maybe they like you and like the other person. Or maybe they don't like you and they like the other person, and then in which case they would have to defend them because they're friends and they care for them. And I think that's an absolute beautiful thing, right? And there's always two sides to every story, and without those explanations nobody's really going to understand. So they're going to come to their own conclusions as to what happened. And so sometimes it's just best for the sake of everybody in that understanding of kindness and the other people in the vicinity, that it's a lesson for them how we upheld ourselves, how we dealt with the situation. You know, a prime example, you guys know if you've hung out with me for a little length of time, I worked in a little thrift store, right? And lots of time the homeless would come in, and during the changes in the seasons, they would need a new set of clothes. In summertime, a pair of sandals and a pair of shorts and some clean underwear. In the wintertime, maybe it's some socks and some long underwear, maybe a pair of sweatpants and a sleeping bag, right? And we would do these kindnesses for these people. And lots of times these people weren't appreciative. Some of them, they were outright rude. Sometimes they would just steal the things without even asking for it. But people would know and people would recognize. And one thing I loved about the store that I worked at is we treated everybody with kindness. There were times, right, in the protection of other people in the store that we had to stand up and be the leader and set the rules down. But for the most part, we were very kind to the homeless and to the vulnerable who came into our store. It was something that we prided ourselves on, right? And it wasn't for the benefit of that person, especially if they were not nice, kind, and they were stealing and they were saying mean things. It would be for the people that were in the vicinity, the other customers in the store, so that they would recognize, right, how to treat people and be, I don't know, not I'm not looking at the word proud, but maybe appreciative that there were people out there that didn't judge people for the moment that they were in, right? That they were just frustrated with people saying no when it came to the handouts, or no when they asked for some underwear or whatever it was. And, you know, if you said no to them, it could be the last straw on that camel's back and they just can go haywire in that. But like I said, it was something that I appreciated about all the staff that we worked with in that store, that we treated people with kindness. And sometimes that kindness, like I said, it wasn't for the person that was right in front of us that we were working or dealing with. It was for the other people who were witnesses to that, because we are the examples and the evidence for other people how important kindness is in a world that is, it's not selfish, but we are self-absorbed and we're self-protective, and we're taking care, and we should be taking care of number one, and we should be taking care of ours, and we shouldn't be overstepping ourselves and getting ourselves in sticky situations, because we're not mind readers. We don't know what's going on in somebody's mind, and we don't know what will trigger other people. And so that's why kindness is so important. And this little post that I kind of happened on, waiting to go live again 2 days in a row, it triggered me because even though I'm not somebody who really follows this woman's content, she does hang in the same networks as I hang in. I'm very well aware of her. She comes up in conversation. I do happen across her feed every once in a while. I don't really delve into it because we all resonate with something different, right? I have mine just like you have yours, right? But I felt triggered in the unkindness somebody was divvying out in a statement and then an entire content, which I did read and I shouldn't have read, but I did go in and I did read it. And, I felt it was unkind, right? To target, to point out, because we have to understand everybody has enemies. Everybody has people who don't like them, right? And the only thing that we can do is not be around them. If they're going to be around these people that don't like you, then you shouldn't be around as much as you appreciate this person. You shouldn't be around this person, especially when they're around these other people who don't like you, because just the feedback, the things they're going to say to you, the things that they're going to do to you, and the things that are going to put that person in an uncomfortable situation where they feel that maybe they have to stick up for you. And again, how would I feel if my friend who I love so much doesn't stick up for me? And that's happened in my life so much. And that's what was triggering to me, right? The only thing that saved me from going in there and coming back, because I'm not one for turning the other cheek, and coming back in and saying my piece, was the fact that this lady isn't somebody that I'm close to, that you know I am appreciate. I'm appreciative because she's in mindset, she's in influence and inspiration and motivation, right? But but right, just, and then when I went into comments because I wanted to see what people were saying, right? And I was really kind of warmed by the idea that lots of people were sticking up for her. That if she went into the comments herself and these people are in her feed and she recognizes their names because they're commenting on her content, that she could truly recognize who her friends are by the way that they were sticking up. They weren't unkind, but they were letting this other person know that that wasn't a kind thing to say, right? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But I understand this other woman's point of view too, right? I really do. But this idea that we all have people around us, right, that like us and don't like us, right? And some people who are kind of indifferent in it too. And so I have to I have to appreciate that we got to be careful when we say unkind things about other people because, right? Somebody's going to appreciate that person that you said something unkind about. And if they know where you live, they cross you on the sidewalk, you're going to get an earful for sure because that's what friends do. They stick up for their friends. But again, if you can't get along with the people, it's just best to just make a fork in the road. You can make that fork at any point and make it yourself and go, nice knowing you. But you don't have to be unkind about it, right? That was something that I just wanted to say. You know, I wrote something down here, stay away from people who are around others who don't like you, right? Because you can't win in that. And you're going to put your friend in an uncomfortable situation too, where you're going to have to choose, right? It's always best just to make that fork in the road and go another way, right? You'll meet other people. And like I said, you bump into that friend somewheres down the road. If they were truly your friend, there wouldn't be any explanation that would be needed. Maybe a hug, maybe a hello, maybe a it's so wonderful to see you. How has life been treating you? And have a few minutes of catch up and then go on with your life, right? Okay, let me come into the comment here. No, it doesn't seem funny, Cindy, to feel the weight of the world on you. My heart has been heavy and heartbroken and sad to see and hear things going on in the world. I have felt that for about three for 3 months. I am uh, around a lot of people who've been feeling the same way, but we have to remember that we are the ones that are supposed to lighten things up, right? We're the ones that are supposed to make things feel a little bit better. We have that capability, right? It is kind of our responsibility, maybe not something that we want to do, but we recognize it. And a lot of people are talking about it, right? They feel it. But that's change, right? That's the change in the world right now. And this is when we have to practice those crafts that we worked so hard to get good at, right? And not only that, these are these are talents that we picked up when we were very young. These were the gifts that whoever, whatever, in our lessons of life, right? Because these lessons came across our paths for a reason. I believe that. I have to believe that, right? That I can't believe that everything that I have endured, everything that I have experienced, all the heartbreak, right, has been for nothing. Because that would mean all the joy, right? All the fun, excitement, and adventures in my life might have only been a coping mechanism for what I was going through. And I don't ever want to feel that way. I'm creating the best life as I possibly can. And yes, it might be the best of times, but yes, it might be the worst of times also. But being the example and the evidence for other people, right? We can do something about that, right? And yes, it wears us down, but we have to remember in that we are number one, right? You guys hear me say it all the time. We're number one. And you have to understand your capacity. I have to understand my capacity. And as much as I would like to help, as much as I would like to step in, I understand my capacity, right? I understand my capacity. And I understand that if I go slow, if I kind of crash out, if I don't have a list of to dos to do, because I don't want to do just for the sake of doing, right? Because then that would tie me up for those moments that we have no idea what's going on. And I could stop for a moment and lift somebody else up. And in lifting somebody else up, I might be lifted up myself in that. It might not be by that circumstance or that person, but somehow during the course of the day, right? I'll be lifted up. I got a gift today, right? Something came across my path that lightened the load in my life, and I thought that was absolutely beautiful. And then I went to the store because I needed to pick up some sugar because I've been on sweeteners since I was like 7 years old. And the sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, has been causing me some problems, and I have to come off of them. And because I can't give up the sweetness in my coffee, right, I am going back to the sugar, but I'm not going to feel bad about that. I'm kind of proud of myself because I have not touched sweeteners in a few months now. And I'm kind of proud of myself because I have been on sweeteners, a lot of sweeteners, like at least 10 sweeteners a day since I was like 7 years old, right? That stuff turns into formaldehyde in your body, right? But I was thinking to myself, it's the best of two evils. Like I'm going to use the sweetener or I'm going to get fat. Right? But my health is everything to me because I'm everything to me. I'm number one. And I can't allow myself to feel guilty for taking in sugar. But what I was going to say about that, I went to the store to get some sugar, and there was a gentleman outside of that store, and I've gotten into the habit because it's the same gentleman, right? And he has his cup, and he's hoping people give him a few cents, and he knows I don't give him money every time I go into the store, the drugstore, right? But that's his spot. But he says hello to me when I go into the store, and when I come out of the store, if I have anything in my change purse, I will give him a little bit of coin, right? But it's not every time. But those are the kind things that uplift me to make me feel like, I did matter to somebody. It was only a few coins, but it mattered. And it was a kindness, right? And I don't know if anybody else was watching that kindness when I dropped a few coins into his cup. And I'm not even concerned what he's using those coins for, whether it's for food, milk on his kid's cereal, maybe it's a bottle of alcohol, maybe, right? Maybe it's something else. That's not my concern. My concern is to alleviate the pain in the moment and appreciate the kindness that I was bestowing, right? But also appreciating, you know, that's somebody's pride, right? That's the lows in somebody's life. And if somewheres during the course of the day he can feel good that he's filling up that cup and he can put the milk on the kid's cereal or some groceries in the cupboard or buy himself a bottle, right? We are not perfect. We are only human, you guys. We are only human. And in our evolution, we need as many people as we possibly can. We need as many shiners out there as we can. And there are lots of shiners. There are lots of lights. But yes, Tammy, right? Lots of the lights out there are in their darknesses too. But we have to appreciate that darkness is out there. And this woman, she meant well, right? She kind of crossed the line. She kind of got triggered and angry in the moment and decided to, bleh, right? Online. But I would hope that somebody would give her that kindness and understand that people make mistakes. She might even recognize, maybe she won't recognize that she made a mistake, that she shouldn't have done that, right? When that post gets taken down, and there will, because when you're online, you're not allowed to say negative things about people, and especially use their name when you're saying these negative things, because your post will be taken right down. You could even lose your account for that, right? So yeah, just to appreciate, you get what you give in the world, and understand that you are only human, that I am only human, and I'm going to appreciate my capacity. I'm not going to beat myself up and feel guilty because I'm using sugar in my coffee and I'm going to get fat. Okay, I'm going to get fat, right? I'm going to be 65 years old this year. I'd much rather be around for another 10 or 20 years than, right, be filled with formaldehyde from some artificial sweeteners. I've been on them for way too long, and change is ever present. I will get to the cane sugar, then I will get to the honey, maybe I'll get to that, what do you call that stinky fruit. There's a stinky fruit that they make sugar out of, artificial sugar out of, that isn't bad for your system. But change is ever present, and it's just being appreciated of each other. But I'm glad that everybody is on that same boat, right? Treat yourself well, treat everybody else well, knowing everybody is struggling. Like, everybody is struggling right now. And it's that lesson to know that we need each other, right? Lots of people out there don't like humans, and I don't understand it, because people out there are playing the role of humans. They're living a life as a human, and yet they hate their neighbors, right? They hate their coworkers. They hate the guy who lives down the street. Sometimes they hate even the own members of their own family, right? But everybody's got their own battles in the moment. But that's the lesson, right? That we recognize that we can't manage without each other. And I'm grateful Tammy is here, keeping me company, right? Compounding that idea that Cindy matters, what Cindy's got to say, it matters, right? And the kindness of that company, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to think at some point I will be able to reciprocate in kindness also, right? That I will bring something to the table that Tammy appreciates and can use in her own life. But I appreciate that you said that, because people are keeping it inside, right? And because they just don't trust people, right? They don't want to be judged. They don't want to be thought as, I've got my poop together. Nothing's going wrong, or nothing is going wrong. Everything is going great in my life, when everybody has got issues. You hear me say it all the time. Everybody's got a handicap: physical, mental, emotional. And sometimes it's temporary, sometimes it's waves, sometimes it switches, right? But we have to ride those waves the best that we can, and shine on each other the best that we can, and keep bringing the kindness to the table, right? Keep bringing. And this is what I'm saying for myself, because I understand it's only through my own actions and my own thoughts and my own emotions that I can move forward, right? And everybody else has got to decide for themselves. But I would like to think that if I was in trouble and I crossed Tammy down the sidewalk, that she would stop and say, "Ooh, Cindy, you're kind of looking a little pale today. What's going on?" Right? And that we could have a conversation, because you never know who's going to have that answer, who's going to have that relief, Sometimes we don't need answers. Sometimes the only relief that we need is that somebody noticed that we were struggling in the moment. Okay, you guys, let's get into a powerful word. I'm just going to come into the comments here. Um, right, and I do. That's what I feel inside me personal. I do lift people up almost every day. Way to go, Cindy, on getting off of sweeteners. Yeah, those artificial sweeteners, I've been on them for way too long. Maybe it's just a break. Maybe I'll gain so much weight that I'll just say I can't do this anymore and I'll be back on the sweeteners. Or maybe I'll just cut my coffees because I was thinking 2 cups of coffee a day would be perfectly fine. In the moment I'm having about 4 cups of coffee during the course of the day. But if I can cut down to 2, that cuts the amount of sugar I'm putting in my coffee too, right? I'm not somebody who appreciates black coffee. I'm not. Cindy, yesterday I went to the store, and while I was there with my brother, a lady had a seizure, and I helped the lady. Oh my goodness! Helped the lady instantly and was there to help her and get her through it. And she thanked me. Oh my goodness. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Tammy. Right? We all have gifts. We all have something to bring to the table. And that woman needed you yesterday. And whoever, whatever, brought her across your path so you could do specifically that. What if she was by herself? Right? What if she had fallen in a street and it wasn't just a seizure that she had, that somebody actually ran over her with the bike or hit her with the car or she hit her head on the ground, that you were there in that moment of her need and how much she appreciated that. That's absolutely beautiful. What a great example, Tammy. What a great example. And what does that do for you, Tammy? How do you feel in that moment? You guys know how I feel about accomplishment, and getting things done. But Tammy, when you help somebody, because this is your gift as a caregiver to be able to help a complete stranger, right? When you're taking care of your brother in the moment too, that you have a moment and you just jumped in and saved the day for somebody else. That's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Okay, now that I've got that off my chest, let's get into a powerful word. Let's have a sip of my juice. Okay, and we're going to just pick a card. 54 powerful words, right? Maybe it'll be pertinent to the conversation that we had today. Maybe we'll just go off in a totally different direction, right? And then the powerful perspective for the word for tonight, Tuesday night on August 25th, 2026 is da 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 da. Here we go, Tammy. The word we got tonight is, there's a good word. Gratefulness is the expression of appreciation in acknowledgement of what we receive. Right? Oh my goodness. Just what we were talking about, Tammy, when you helped that lady out and she said, thank you. Gratefulness is the expression of appreciation in acknowledgement of what we received. Like I said, you did that lady a service, right? And sometimes we don't have money, right? It's not like, oh my goodness, take this gift, let me take you out for dinner, right? And that little drummer girl, drummer boy kind of attitude where you don't think you have anything to give. Sometimes it's just in the appreciation. Sometimes it's just in the gratefulness, in the expression, right? Kind of grateful to myself, right? I didn't plan. I hit that live button. I come in and whatever the flow is, that's the flow. of the conversation. And I'm so grateful that I got that off my chest, that I actually expressed it and talked about it a little bit, because I kind of hashed it over in that conversation. And it's some good advice. And I'm going to come in after my live show and I'm going to rewatch my live for myself, because there's a lesson in there for myself, right? For sure. But I am only human. And I have to say, I'm grateful for that, to recognize that I'm only human, that I'm not superwoman. I am not indispensable to myself or to the world, because at any given moment, my craft, what I'm good at, might be, right, really needed in somebody else's moment. And Tammy, like, that's something you have to recognize for yourself. And it's just not in appreciation of somebody else recognizing and saying, thank you. Thank you so much for helping me. But what about you, Tammy? Being grateful, being grateful that you have those skills to appreciate yourself when you're feeling heavy, when you feel like you don't have anything to give, right? To recognize that you're pretty special in your own right, and to express that to yourself. Acknowledge that in yourself. And that's something we don't do enough of, right? We're all here for a reason. If you're hanging out with me in this kind of content, for sure you have something that is sorely needed, right? Sorely needed. And, this is part of evolution, is that social aspect. And you might not think it's social in helping somebody when they're having a problem or they're having a moment of need, but it certainly is, right? Because we have a hard time in expression. We live in a day and age that is kind of teaching us to be isolated, right? To be singular in taking care of ourselves. And that's the way you connect with others, right? In sharing that gift, in being part of the human race, right? We need those reminders that, you know, we are human. It is about our evolution. I believe this heaviness that we're all feeling, it is the next stage of evolution. And I don't believe that it's all going to be sprinkles and cotton candy and rainbows. Definitely not, because I'm feeling it too. But we can help to lighten the loads, right? We can we can smile in somebody else's difficulties to help to lighten them up. We can whistle while we work. We can sing in the rain. And we can understand it can be the best of times, even when it's in the worst of times, right? And that's what community is. That's what a village, a city, a world is. It takes all kinds to make the world. And when that ship is sinking, right, everybody jumps in. We're not looking at who's got a job, right? Who's got the prettiest clothes, who's the smartest, right? Who can lift a hand, who can join in, right? Who can help to make a bad situation better. And that's the truth. And in that moment, we can find gratefulness for everybody who participated in that, in the large amounts or the little amounts, right? If I was with you, Tammy, I would just be listening to you. You would say, Cindy, stick that stick in her mouth, or lift up her legs, or hold her head. Like, I would have just followed your instruction, because I know that you would be the expert in that. You would be the leader in that, right? We all have gifts, and it's just appreciating that really nobody's the king of the road, right? Nobody's the king of the world, to tell you the truth. We're all going to get our moments when we're going to have to jump in and take the lead, right? And I'm optimistic in that people are going to be appreciative, and they're going to express that. And that's where you're going to find that sense that, okay, I belong here, right? I can do this. I can get through this, right? The world needs me. Good job, right? Good job. Okay, you guys. Gratefulness is the expression of appreciation and acknowledgement of what we received. Is there somebody out there that you could just lift up the phone or send them a text just to say thank you for making me feel a little bit better, right? That might make them feel a little bit better too, right? Because lots of times we don't appreciate the difficult times that other people are going through when we're going through them ourselves. Okay, you guys. That's my good cheer, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for your contribution in that, Tammy. I really appreciate that. Have a great night.